Hey guys, Mr. B, XRP here. Welcome back. It is actually January 24th of 2020, and let's just jump right into it. The market is pretty, pretty across the board here. Unremarkable. We went green in the last hour. Bitcoin's at 84.95, Ethereum's at 162, and XRP's at right around 22 cents. But that is not the big news, although we'd like it to be the big news, but it's not the big news. The big news is this. Let's jump right into it. Yesterday, Ashish Burla on Twitter in the afternoon at 1:32 in the afternoon posted a quote from Brad Garlinghouse, and here is the quote from Brad. In the next 12 months, you'll see IPOs in the crypto blockchain space. We're not going to be the first, and we're not going to be the last, but I expect us to be on the leading side. It's a natural evolution of our company. That was Brad Garlinghouse. And in Davos yesterday when he was on a panel with the Wall Street Journal. We haven't seen that interview yet. They haven't released it yet. I'm assuming it will get released at some point. So it will be interesting to see the context of the statement, although I can't imagine any of the context changing the words. I mean, the words are very clear that he's saying that Ripple is going to go public, and my guess is in the next 12 months based on what he said. It's not guaranteed, but it sure looks like that. And I find it interesting that Brad decided to make that news in Davos on that panel and kind of wrap that news, in this quote. I mean, it's kind of interesting. It wasn't like a big announcement. It was just kind of slipped in there. So interesting stuff. I'm going to have a lot of opinion on this and share with you my opinions and a lot of speculation that I'm hearing about it. But before I do, you guys need to understand something. I am not a financial advisor. I mean, everything I'm going to talk about is my opinions only as an XRP investor of what I think is going to happen in the future. Everybody here needs to do their own research. And if you're interested in the IPO, you need to get with a financial advisor. You may have to explain to them what Ripple is and XRP because they'll likely have no idea. But you guys need to seek professionals when it comes to this stuff. I'm just sharing, what I see in my opinion based on my investment. So let me just start out by saying that because this is way outside my scale of expertise. I'm a real estate broker, but I am an investor in XRP and I care about what happens. Okay, so there's the premise. So before I get into my thoughts, let's look at some of the tweets that we saw out there yesterday. So I actually tweeted, I said, I don't know any other way to see this other than Ripple is planning on going public. I imagine if any of the escrow is pre-allocated and not owned by the company, that it will have to be disclosed. Ripple and XRP may finally be getting the attention it deserves. Stay tuned. All right, so that was my initial response. I also saw Jungle Inc. say, I'm a little shocked that people find a possible Ripple IPO unexpected. CEO has one job, grow shareholder wealth. I imagine if you're sitting across from Yoshitaka Kitao and other major investors, you have only two acceptable paths. Get bought out or go public. I like option 2. And I agree with Jungle 100%. I mean, option 2 is way better. We don't want them to get bought out because the passion that this team has for what they're doing is the most important ingredient in all of Ripple. And here are some of the investors that are expecting those returns. Accenture, Andreessen Horowitz, Santander, SBI Group, Seagate, Standard Chartered, Digital Ventures. These guys want to see returns, and I think they're going to. Cryptopolis also responded to saying, and Cryptopolis, by the way, is a conventional market guy. He's 40 years in the conventional market, so we're going to be looking to him for a lot of information on this, on IPOs, and what he thinks is going to happen. But he mentioned this on Twitter. He said raising money in the capital markets could allow Ripple to acquire other public companies to increase XRP adoption. Just saying. All right, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's been there. And carrying on, I also made a statement that it brings Ripple and XRP out of the skeptical shadow of the cryptocurrency world and into the light of the mainstream media and conventional investors. Suddenly, we aren't fools invested in magical internet money, which I think is very, very, very important. And then Dilip Rao told us he was retiring and putting his feet up in in Australia. Well, it turns out he's not. It turns out he started a new company called Woomer Labs, and apparently he's going to be a consultant for payments companies. So interesting to see what Dilip Rao is going to be doing here in the near future. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets pulled out on the roadshow for the IPO with Ripple, because he's kind of one of the statesmen of Ripple. But let's get into it. Let's get into Ripple potentially going IPO, or it looks like it's impending anyway. And what I think of it and what I've seen out there. So the question is, why are they going to do an IPO, right? So do they? I mean, it is the natural progression, right? So they need to show returns to their investors. So we know that's one of the reasons. The other reason is, do they want to raise money to acquire other companies? I mean, do they want to buy out MoneyGram? Could they be wanting to buy? And this is all speculation. Could they be wanting to buy Western Union? All of these things need to be kind of thrown on the table. And also, I'm sure that the founders and the employees maybe want to cash out some of their shares of their private stock, so they want to see their big payday. And also by going public, it will give Ripple the ability to offer public shares to not only their employees, but to attract new talent that they may want to get in the future. So that's kind of a big one too. And the other thing that I was talking to some people on the phone last night, and we were talking about is, did they have to go public? Was this the final thing to do to separate Ripple from XRP? Was it necessary to go public? Did the powers that be, did they tell Ripple that, the most valuable company in the world can't be a private company and it needs to be under the scrutiny of a public company? So, all of these things are potential, and it could be all of these things, right? It might not be just any one of these things. It could be all of these things. So, I think there's a lot of reasons why they're going to go public, but I think a lot of those reasons are part of them, and there may be 100 more reasons. Let's see what else I have here. I have kind of a list that I wrote down. Nothing in any particular order, guys. So there's lots of unanswered questions, which in this whole thing, which is going to lead to even more speculation. So here's the big speculation. Will XRP surge in value leading up to the IPO? I think it might, but I'm going to share my opinion on that in just a second. I want to go through a little bit more here. So now we officially know what that $200 million was in the Series 3 funding round, right? It was speculated that might have been it to go with an IPO, and apparently that's what it is. And based on Brad's words, it sounds like it's going to happen in the next 12 months. So this puts Ripple in the spotlight for all the world to see, along with XRP. So the big question is, will Ripple now have to clarify who owns the escrow and if any is pre-allocated, which is a big deal, right? The last bull run, in my opinion, started when Ripple put the $50 billion XRP in escrow. So can clarification of who owns the remaining escrow have the same effect? I don't know. Does the IMF, the Fed, or any governments own a portion of that escrow? That I don't know. But it will be interesting to see, because they're going to have to value the company, right? Well, we know the value of the company is at $10 billion, but they're going to have to show what are the assets of the company if they're going to offer it as an IPO. So we're going to have to figure out how much of that escrow is actually still owned by Ripple, which I think is going to clarify a lot of things for a lot of people. And I think people are going to be surprised to find out that there may be pre-allocated funds in that escrow. Moving on, so here's the big thing, right? Will XRP investors get a second bite of the apple? And a second bite of the apple means, will they make money on XRP going up in value and then also have the ability to buy in on the IPO? And my opinion is that most won't. Most will not be able to get in on the IPO, because here's the deal. You're going to have to you need to check with your professional, but I believe you're going to have to be an accredited investor to invest in the IPO, which means you're going to have to meet the scrutiny of being an accredited investor, which means you'll have to make $200,000 a year or have a minimum of $1 million in net worth. So, my position is this: if 95% of the American public can't qualify to be an accredited investor, it's likely that a large percentage of the XRP community and the XRP investors out there, the retail investors out there, won't qualify to take part in the IPO. I mean, if less than 5% of Americans could qualify for that, what percentage of the world could qualify to be an accredited investor? 1%? Less than 1%? So I think there's an argument that the overwhelming majority of people can't get in on the IPO, which is going to frustrate a lot of XRP holders because they're going to wish they could. But here's kind of the good news in that. The good news in that is a lot of the new people that are going to be seeing Ripple on TV, they're going to see this road show, they're going to want to get involved, are going to realize they can't get in on the IPO. So it's my opinion, and my opinion only, that they're going to want to buy the next best thing, which is what we've been doing for several years, which is buying XRP. So to me, this would be the logical move by most investors. And it might have been part of Ripple's plan, right? I mean, Ripple might have realized that, most people wouldn't qualify to buy in on the IPO, and they wanted them to buy the XRP to run up the value of XRP prior to this IPO taking place. Now, that may not happen, but it's my opinion, I think that's going to happen. So we will, it's just a wait and see game, guys. It's always a wait and see game. But this is, in my opinion, my overall opinion, is this impending IPO, I believe it's going to put Ripple and XRP in the spotlight. We're going to now be able to come out of the shadows, and suddenly people aren't going to be laughing anymore. This is real. It's going to be on CNBC. It's going to be on Fast Money. It's going to be in the Wall Street Journal. I mean, we're going to get some real mainstream news about this, and I think it's going to really, really make a difference. I mean, look, if XRP was going to succeed without the IPO, then having the IPO wouldn't change a thing, and will certainly, in my opinion, help the cause. So that's kind of how I feel about it, and I'm hoping that you guys will share in the comments below how you feel about it. Do you think that Ripple going public is a good thing, and why do you think they're doing it? I'd love to hear everyone's comments, and I'm going to take you to the last tweet I did yesterday, which was obviously being sarcastic. Which is tough to do on Twitter because a lot of people, for whatever reason, they don't, especially people not from the United States or that, and I don't know if it's an English thing or what, but they don't get sarcasm, which is difficult to do on Twitter. But I did it, and I wrote, "Those scammers at Ripple have officially scammed retail investors, banks, money remittance companies, the IMF, the Fed, the Treasury, the White House, and soon naive Wall Street. Ha! XRP, the standard, zero doubt." So guys, obviously this is, I'm being sarcastic here. I don't think Ripple, they're scammers at all. And I wanted to remind everyone of all the people that Ripple has worked with in this journey to get to where they are. Let's not forget this. This is the important part, okay? So I see this as a good thing. I think we're going to learn more and more about it over time, but everybody needs to do their due diligence and figure out, what they need to do in the future. And what's going to make sense to them. So in that, I'm going to leave you guys. I'm going to tell you I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an IPO expert. And I'm not a crypto expert. These are my opinions only. Don't take any financial decisions. Don't make any financial decisions based on anything I say. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Please like and subscribe and hit the notifications button and share with anybody who you think might do the same. And guys, please, 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 give me a subscribe. I'm about 150 people away from 8,000, and I would love to hit it today if possible. And everybody have a fantastic weekend, and go XRP.